If I offered you $1 million right now, like in cold hard cash, or a single copper penny that magically doubles in value every single day for 30 days, which one are you taking?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I'm grabbing the $1,000,000 and running.
Right. You don't even have to think about it. If you're like 99% of the population, your instinct is just to take the million. It feels safe. It's
Yeah.
tangible.
Yeah, a bird in the hand, exactly.
But if you actually sit down and do the math, that single, seemingly worthless penny doubling every day turns into over $5 million by day 30.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. And most of us miss out on that 5 million because our brains are completely, stubbornly blind to the reality of exponential growth.
We really are. We're practically hardwired by evolution to think linearly.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you track a predator, you walk a mile, you pick a berry. It's a strict 1-to-1 ratio of effort to reward. And we spend our entire lives trapped in that linear mindset.
Yeah, 1 unit of sweat equals 1 unit of reward.
Right. You want a new car, you pick up extra shifts, you want a house, you start a side hustle, you just grind and trade your time for a few extra dollars until you completely burn yourself out.
It's the ultimate human trap, honestly. We treat wealth generation like physical labor.
We really do.
We assume the only way to get more reward is just to produce more sweat. And I mean, it's an intuitive way to live, but from a purely mathematical standpoint, it's incredibly inefficient.
Extremely inefficient.
That cognitive bias, our sheer inability to instinctively grasp anything other than a straight line, is why so many people feel completely hopeless when they look at their long-term financial goals.
Yeah, they're exhausted.
Right, because they are basically trying to build a skyscraper using only their bare hands, completely unaware that there is heavy machinery sitting right next to them with the keys already in the ignition.
Which brings us to the actual blueprint for that machinery. Today, we're taking a deep dive into an incredibly potent but super concise financial primer titled TVS 66, How Compound Interest Pays Off.
A classic.
It really is. And our mission here isn't to just give you some dry middle school math lesson. We want to look at the underlying mechanics of a system that essentially replaces your physical sweat with mathematical inevitability.
I love that phrasing. Mathematical inevitability.
Because whether you're aiming for that new car or a house or just making sure you don't have to work until you're 90 years old, understanding the physics of this singular concept is the absolute shortcut.
It really is the bridge between relying on your own labor and letting your capital do the heavy lifting.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because while anyone who follows finance knows the basic definition of compounding, we often just glaze over the actual mechanics of it.
It totally becomes a buzzword.
Right. So the text gives us a super clean baseline definition. Compound interest is interest earned on the principal amount plus the interest that was paid earlier.
Simple enough.
Yeah, but to visualize it, think about a snowball rolling down a snowy hill. You've got this small core, which is your principal, right?
Yeah, the initial money you put in.
Exactly. And as it rolls, that core gathers snow. That's your first round of interest. But here is the picker. Because the snowball is now slightly larger, its increased surface area gathers even more snow on the very next rotation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what you're describing with that snowball analogy is a massive philosophical shift.
How so?
Well, it shifts saving from a linear grind to an exponential growth process. Your money effectively starts working for itself.
Your money gets a job.
Exactly, which aligns perfectly with the source's claim that this mechanism allows you to build wealth with, quote, very little effort. Because the snowball is doing the work just by rolling, not you.
Right, you just have to give it that initial push.
Right.
So let's look at the exact numbers provided in TBS 66 to see how that snowball actually rolls over a decade.
Let's do it.
The text uses a very concrete example. Let's say you put a flat $1,000 into a bank account or an investment product that's offering a 5% interest rate per year.
And that's a great baseline because it removes all the chaotic variables of the stock market. We can just look at the pure math.
Right. So you deposit the $1,000. By the end of year one, your money has earned 5% on that principal.
Yeah.
So you're sitting at $1,050.
Not bad.
Yeah. Your capital went out and brought back $50. Great. Now, you lock the account. You don't add a single penny of your own money to it.
You just let it sit.
Right. Fast forward to the end of year two, and the text shows the balance ending at $1,103.
Which is the magic moment right there.
See, I'm going to stop you right there and push back because I feel like this is exactly where people tune out of financial advice.
Really? Why?
Let's look at those numbers realistically.
Yeah.
In year one, we gained $50. In year two, we end up at $1,103. That means in the second year, the total gain was $53.
Right.
Wait, so in year 2, we only made $3 extra? That doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, I can't even buy a fancy coffee for $3 anymore.
That's a very fair point.
A $3 increase over an entire year feels like a complete rounding error. It certainly doesn't feel like a shortcut to early retirement. Why should anyone care about $3?
Your skepticism is totally justified, and it highlights exactly why that penny doubling brain teaser trips people up. You're looking at the $3 through a purely linear lens.
I mean, $3 is $3.
Right, but you're judging the flat part of the exponential curve. What's fascinating here is the exact mechanic that produced that $3.
Okay, lay it on me.
It is the literal manifestation of interest receiving interest. Your original $1,000 did its normal job and earned its standard $50, just like the year before.
Right.
But that extra $3, that was generated exclusively by the $50 you made in year 1.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the interest is now producing its own interest.
Precisely. Your original money is working, and now your earnings have clocked in and started working a shift right alongside it. Yes, $3 is tiny in isolation, but it proves the engine has turned over.
The snowball is officially gathering its own snow.
Exactly. And the text stresses that you cannot evaluate this process on a short 2-year horizon. This process demands a longer runway.
Because it needs time to roll.
Right. The source points out that if you just leave that original $1,000 alone, adding absolutely nothing to it and let it compound for 10 years, your balance reaches $1,629.
Which honestly starts to sound a little crazy when you strip away all the financial jargon.
It really does.
You started with $1,000. You went on with your life. Maybe you even forgot the account existed, and you did absolutely zero work for a decade.
Zero effort.
And yet, you generated $629 in pure profit. Your initial investment grew by over 60%, effortlessly. That proves that patience with this process yields significant wealth.
It's a profound validation of patience. The machine turns on in year 2 with that tiny $3 advantage, and then that advantage just expands year over year.
Okay, so time is obviously the biggest factor here. But we've seen how time affects the total. Now the text reveals another hidden gear in this whole machine.
Ah, yes.
The frequency. Exactly. It's not just about how long the math happens, it's about how often the math happens. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's hear it.
The text asserts that there is basically a built-in bonus to this system. The more frequently the compounding occurs, the more interest is earned overall.
Which makes sense mechanically.
Right, but to visualize it, let's step away from the snowball for a second. Imagine a garden.
Okay, a garden.
If you water that garden a tiny bit every single day, the soil stays moist, the roots constantly have what they need to grow.
Yeah, it thrives.
But imagine if, instead of watering it daily, you just dump a massive bucket of water on it once a year.
Oh, it would flood and then just completely dry out and die for the other 364 days.
Exactly. The more frequent watering or compounding changes the environment faster.
That's a great way to put it. When we talk about frequency, we're talking about a massive structural shift. When compounding happens monthly instead of annually, the entire cycle of interest receiving interest accelerates.
Because you aren't waiting for the bucket.
Right. The money doesn't have to wait 365 days to start generating its own returns. It gets folded into the principal and it starts snowballing 12 times a year instead of just once.
So we need to compare these two frequencies side by side using the numbers from the source. Does this hidden gear actually matter?
It definitely does. Let's look at the exact figures for the monthly compounding scenario from the text.
Okay, so still $1,000 at 5%.
Yes. In year 2, with monthly compounding, the balance hits $1,105.
Okay, wait. The annual figure for year 2 was $1,103. So we are talking about a $2 difference.
In the very short term, yes, $2.
All right, let's stretch it out to year 10.
At year 10, the monthly compounding balance hits $1,647.
And the annual compounding at year 10 was $1,629.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? Because, a final total of $1,647 versus $1,629, that's a difference of $18 over 10 years.
I know where you're going with this.
I have to ask. While the text admits these differences might not seem like huge amounts in a vacuum, I really need to know how the listener is supposed to frame these tiny sums. $18 in 10 years isn't buying anyone a house.
This raises an important question, really, about how we perceive scale. You have to remember that the $1,000 is just a tiny model to show how the math works.
The proof of concept.
Right. But these mechanics scale up infinitely. If you are dealing with $50,000 or $100,000 for retirement, that $18 isn't $18 anymore.
Oh, I see. The percentages stay the same, but the actual dollar amount explodes.
Precisely. And the source's concluding thesis makes this so clear. The longer you have to save, the more compounding can help grow even small sums into significant savings.
Because it's an argument for time in the market over timing the market.
Exactly. You get the math working as frequently as possible for as long as possible.
It really comes full circle. So, to bring it all back to you, the listener, whether you are aiming for a car, a home, or retiring on a beach somewhere, the secret isn't just working harder and burning yourself out.
No, it's about working smarter.
It's about making sure your principal and your interest are working together. We saw the essential elements today: the $1,000 baseline, the 5% rate, and the hidden power of bumping that frequency up to monthly.
It's a simple system, but the impact is staggering over time.
It really is. And the source actually leaves us with a great prompt at the end. They suggest that giving a financial professional a call can really help you harness this power for your own specific goals.
Because applying the math to your actual life with taxes and inflation is where it gets real.
Exactly. You don't have to figure it all out alone.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Go for it.
We just saw how a single one-time deposit of $1,000 can grow by over 60% in 10 years entirely on its own with zero extra effort, right?
Yep, the magical $629.
Right? But imagine the mathematical explosion that would happen if, while time and frequency were already working in your favor, you continually added new principal to the pile.
Oh, wow. So you just keep feeding the machine.
Exactly. What happens when you combine exponential growth with consistent monthly deposits? The results are practically limitless.
Now that is something to think about.